Okay, we're going to call tonight's meeting to order. We'll begin with an approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? That's carried. I'm going to move the disclosures of pecuniary interest to the open session just because I do have one to declare and I'd rather do it when the public's here. So I do need a motion to go into closed, please. Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. We're in closed session. All right, everybody, welcome to the open portion of the meeting. We have moved the disclosures of pecuniary interest to this point because I do have a disclosure to make for 13.1.4, which is the BIA report. My daughter works for the BIA, so I'm going to claim a conflict for that one. Was there any other disclosures today? No, not seeing any. We will move into the singing of the national anthem, and I'll ask that you all rise if you're able. We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and of the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be saved for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting. Any member of the public who's connecting via telephone is reminded to press *9 to raise their hand to indicate their intention to speak, and dial *6 to mute and unmute when called upon during the appropriate portions of the meeting. We did have a closed session ahead of our open session, and we do have a rise and report. The recommendation is that the June 8th closed council meeting minutes be approved, and that the June 12th Orangeville Business Improvement Area closed meeting minutes be received, and that the July 16th Sustainable Orangeville closed meeting minutes be received, and that the 2026 Sustainable Orangeville grant recipients be approved, and that the insurance claim closeout update be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. There are council meeting minutes from July 13th, 2026. Can I have a recommendation to approve those minutes, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh, any questions or comments? All in favor? And that is carried. We'll move into open forum. The open forum is where Orangeville residents have the opportunity to present their views or pose their questions to council on any subject within council's jurisdiction for a maximum time of 3 minutes, provided they've not previously addressed the same topic before council within the last 3 months. Any residents that are connecting via telephone are reminded to press *9 to indicate their intention to speak, and once called upon to press *6 to mute and unmute. Was there anybody with their hand raised virtually at this point? No? Was there anybody in the gallery? Yep, come on up. Yep, you have to come up to the delegation desk there. We'll make sure that your microphone is on, and once you're there, we do need your name and address for the record, please.
Is this the one that's working?
Yep.
Good.
So name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Okay. What I'm addressing is to...
Just before you get started, we need your name and address. Yeah.
Okay. It's Carrie Shin, and I live at 42 John Street.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Okay, now the floor is yours.
Now, I'm here to back up Councillor Pendergast's request with the motion that she has for the water supply and the database proposal. And I would just like to say that I'm aware of the fact that the county is doing a master plan for the water supply, and that the study that has been recently done as well, in the paper it was noted that really there was not water available for a lot more development, if any at all, other than what has already been specified for developers at this time. And the data, what do they call them?
Data centers.
Centers. Yes, data centers that they are currently building will be obsolete soon. In fact, I think that this is kind of a bizarre time to go around and try to build them, because what they're looking at now in the future is actually having handheld devices that simply you ask your questions while you're walking around, and you don't need all this water and everything else. It's kind of like these giant computers they used to have running universities that took up rooms and rooms, and then now you could probably do it on a laptop. And I think this is the wrong time to do this where we have a water problem. I also think that the planning department for the district, as well as Orangeville, is kind of got to wait until the water resource plan has been put in place before we actually take hands on and do our new official plan. I think it's a false hope for developers to think that there's going to be enough water if there's not. And I have some other things I'd like to read, but it's, I do think there are new technologies. And I would ask council that to state that the groundwater that we have for development depends on resource that we do not yet know we can sustainably provide. The responsibility of this decision is not to gamble. And I would ask council to remember that groundwater is fundamentally different from municipal infrastructure. We can build another road, we can expand a treatment plant, we can upgrade an electrical system, we cannot build another aquifer. Once groundwater quantity has been seriously compromised, the consequences are not something council can solve with another vote or another planning application. And there is another reason for caution. So that's what I would like to leave with you, and in support of Councillor Pendergraft's, right on time.
Perfect timing.
To support her motion.
Yep, CAO Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much for that delegation. I just wanted to make the community clear, there has been zero interest, zero applications, zero inquiries for a data center in Orangeville. So it's comments are well received, but I don't want people to go away thinking that something is bubbling or happening that isn't today, could change tomorrow, but isn't today.
No, that's right, thank you. Councillor Prendergast?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Shin. I was delighted to see your letter of support today in the correspondence. It means a lot when residents speak up, take the time to come and either support something or not support it. Either way is good. So I'm so happy to see you here today. In this case, you're supporting this motion and you understand the sanctity of groundwater. And it is preventative. You know, it's better to know what we have, what capacity we have in advance of these potentially good economic things coming. We don't want to be biased one way or another, but we all do need to drink water. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment quickly on this too. I appreciate what you're saying, CAO Smith. Like Orangeville's had nothing come in for these data centers. I was a bit surprised, when we do speak, and my counterpart here set up that great notice of motion. I think it's a good thing, and I'm certainly supportive of it. But the county has been going through, and Mayor Post and I get to sit on the county, they've been going through the water study, and we're at the point we can't support a large business coming to Dufferin County. So the very thought, I just think it's lower the temperature, because the very thought that a data center could come here under the circumstances that we have, there's not a political discussion. It's a no, we can't do it. So even if there was a will to have it, we do not have the resources to do it in this geographic area. And that's the end of the story.
Sorry, Michelle. I would agree, but I think that provincial priorities trump local priorities. In Melanchthon, there's a proposal, a permit to take water, that is enormous. And that is something that seems to contravene what we're talking about, the study that the county has done. So I don't think it's impossible. And I think we need to safeguard Dufferin County.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Very briefly, you can make a comment if you'd like.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I know that there's no proposal for Orangeville, but the study that's being done is for Garifaxa and Mono, and
It's for all of Dufferin County.
it's
Yeah.
all relative. And also that the worst wells we have are the ones we share with Caledon, and that's probably where they're asking for a data center. I don't want to actually drink road runoff because there's no water. And that's almost what's in that well. So I'm kind of really hoping that we have enough water to take some of the bad wells off the system and actually clean up our water.
Our staff is working very hard towards our groundwater, and we are doing a ton of work right now on that. So thank you so much for your comments. They're very well noted. Thank you. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question or make a comment during open forum at this time? Yep, come on over. Mr. Gristow, not yet. There's another lady here. Come on up. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gristow. We need your name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will start.
My name is Nick Agaristo. I live on Paula Court, L9 5W1. Anyway, the question I have tonight, I think I raised this issue before. For you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, related to Riddell Road, from town line towards Highway 10. It's a mess, the road. So when the county is going to be doing the road? It's full of holes. It's got ruts all over the place. Every time I drive there, looks like I'm swimming in the ocean with my car. Come on.
It is a county road, so it
It
would be
is a
the
county.
best question for the county. Deputy Mayor and I can
But
tell
you-
you that, Deputy Mayor and I can tell you right now that the environmental assessment work and the plan for that road is being done this year, and I believe that the repaving is scheduled for next year at this point, pending budget approval.
No, but you both will sit at the Dufferin County Council.
Yes, and that's why I just answered your
And
question,
you got
sir.
a weather vote there too, so
Yep.
you can push for it. Thank you.
Again, the environmental assessment and the planning is being done this year for the work to be done next year, pending budget
Okay.
approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, ma'am. You had a question? Come on up. And same for you. We'll just need your name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Hi, thanks. It's Zoe Shin, 69 Madison Avenue, Orangeville. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I'm going to keep my comments brief because my mother has already explained the groundwater concerns in detail. I want to focus on a simple question. What is the rush? If Orangeville and Dufferin County are still working to understand the capacity, limitations, and long-term sustainability of our groundwater, why would we proactively approve more development and do these things before we have the assessment of the water supply? If we don't know how much water supply we have, how can we promise it to developers or to, I know it was mentioned that there's no data center in Orangeville, but the groundwater wells don't have district borders. We can build a new well, it's like putting another straw into the same cup. So we really need to understand the land coverage we need to replenish the wells, the well capacity, the number of residents in each home. What is the population? Do we really know how many people are living in each house and consuming how much water? It would be great if there were some like bulk incentives to allow residents to purchase rain barrels, for example, at a discount price, and we can start capturing the rainwater. Building reservoirs, building a lake, doing something to save the water, because it's not only the basic capacity that we have to prepare for, it's also what happens if there's a drought. What is the peak demand? Are we prepared for these situations? Because as my mother said, we need water. It's not something we can just sign up for more of very easily. If we have to bring it from a faraway land or faraway lake, it's a tough one. And the quality of the water as well. There's this one well that's really bringing down the water quality. And if we're going to rely more on that, maybe we shouldn't be mixing these wells. Maybe that well could be separate and we could have better drinking water and better water reuse for gray water systems, incentives for people to save water. There was a drought the other year and we were not allowed to, as residents, use water to water our lands, yet we go for coffee at the Mocha Berry, and they were watering their patio every day when they closed. Because they're a business, they were allowed to water the patio. So there's some disconnection as well between how we're allowing industrial use and business use versus residential use. And I think it would be reckless to approve any more development. That's what the engineers said in this report. We have enough water for the current residents and the current approvals. Let's wait for the full study to show we have enough water before we start promising it to any high-intensity commercial uses potentially in another district that shares our water, or to future development. And, I'm a real estate broker. I'm all about development. I'm all about jobs. But we can do it in a smart way where we're not putting the carriage before the horse. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one comment. We do have a rain barrel program already, so you can hop over to the Orangeville website and you can already get a discounted rain barrel. And then I believe Mr. Koselleck wanted to make some comment.
Yep. Through your worship, we do have a rain barrel program. There's roughly a $50 discount for residents. You could sign up. They deliver them to the house. We've done it for about 3 years now. As far as the well capacity, we built a new storage facility last year for water. I'm not sure what well you're referring to that has poor quality. All our wells have good quality water. We're working on bringing an additional well on in probably about 2 to 3 years. We're also looking at other opportunities for improvements to the system to gain more capacity. What the study that's done right now that you would have read in the paper is called a Tier 3 study. Mono and Orangeville are both looking at the option of putting another well in. So this study evaluated all the groundwater in the area. As groundwater doesn't have any borders, we worked with all the neighboring municipalities, including Caledon, Mono, Amaranth, East Garifraxa, to evaluate the water conditions. Part of it determined that there's sensitivity for some of the land uses, and that's why looking at some of the official plan and reports to look at changing what's done in certain areas. We have a water allocation policy that's very detailed, and we evaluate the distribution and the allowance for water. At this time, we couldn't have a big data center or a huge water usage, but we have no problem with the existing developments that's been proposed over the last few years.
Thank you, Mr. Koselleck, and thank you for your comments today. Was there anybody else who wished to make a comment during open forum today? Yep, come on up. And we just need name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Josh McEwen, 9 Princess Street. Thank you, Mayor Post and members of council. I'm speaking in support of item 14.1, the notice of motion on regional water resources and infrastructure. Over the past few months, while waiting to get in front of County Council on August 27th, I've been presenting to some of the lower tier rural municipalities and asking them to request a county coordinated planning review for data centers and other types of high load facilities. What has become clear through this process is that it should not be framed as panic or as opposition to technology. Duffer may not be the obvious place for a hyperscale data center under current conditions, especially where water-intensive cooling is involved. But technology changes. Some facilities use closed-loop or air-cooled systems that will reduce water demand. And even when water use is lower, the land use questions remain. Electricity demand, servicing, generators, noise, emergency access, site design, and long-term reuse. That is why I think this motion is timely. It recognizes both sides. Data centers may bring investment, employment, assessment growth, digital infrastructure, data sovereignty, and cybersecurity benefits. But those benefits should be weighed against local and regional impacts before a major application arrives. Orangeville has a direct interest in this because the town relies on groundwater, and planning decisions in neighboring municipalities can have cross-boundary impacts on water, infrastructure, and municipal services. Amaranth's draft official plan is open right now, and I've submitted comments asking that data centers and large load facilities be defined as distinct uses before applications arrive, because often they get shoved under the just general warehouse uses. And that is one local, and just Amaranth there is one local example of why a county level review would help. Lower tier municipalities should not be trying to invent definitions and study requirements on their own, under pressure. I would encourage council to support the motion before them tonight and ask them that the county review include clear definitions, study requirements, groundwater and recharge impacts, electricity demand, servicing, emergency response, long-term land use risk, and cross-boundary impacts. We should also look into what power, if any, municipalities have regarding planning and electricity consumption. It was suggested in another municipality that this may be an issue requiring advocacy to the province. To end, the goal should not be to block technology or development. The goal should be to make sure Dufferin has a shared framework before any municipality is dealing with a major application after the fact. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Anything from council? We're good. Thank you very much. Was there anybody else who wished to speak? Come on up, Rob. We just need your name and address for the record as well, and then we will give you your 3 minutes.
Rob Strang, 5 Feet Street, Orangeville. I didn't come here for this issue, but it's a really interesting one. I was just thinking, if I'm a retired engineer, if I was going to propose a data center, which I'm not, I would say, I don't need drinking water, I need cooling water. I will take your sewage effluent water, pay you for it, and use that for my data center. So you might not think you have enough water, but I think you do. That's it.
Thank you, Rob. Interesting comment. Appreciate that. Was there anybody else in the gallery wishing to come up during open forum? Yeah. Okay, James. Okay, and we just need your name and address for the record. Your mic is on, and then the 3 minutes will begin.
James Jackson, 50 Carlton Drive. My comment actually is, it's a why, okay, let me see if I can collect myself here. People have actually come to me with some of the same issues and concerns about why is the town going backwards with accessibility. Case in point is Tony Rose Arena. Thank God I don't do the support group there anymore, because we used to use the drop-off area to unload and take things in for the support group and that. But now you can't even do that because you've taken away the drop-offs area. And now all the accessible parking is so further away. Another great one is at all the town facilities. Town Hall is a great one. We've moved the accessible parking further away from the main entrance. Alder Arena, that one there, my wife actually is taking our little girl to Alder Arena for summer camp, and she actually measured it from the accessible parking into the building and to where she has to take Keeley, which is in the far end where Humber College is. That's a half a mile. For somebody who has mobility issues, you're adding more stress and pain and everything else. For me to come here, it's actually a lot more for me to come here, because unless I park across the street, but then I'm taking my life in my hands to walk across the street with accessibility issues. The library, when we did the bricks and everything from there, that entrance there's a downward slope. If you're in a wheelchair, down you go. You're gonna go right out into the road. So my thing is why do we seem to be going backwards with accessibility? We don't even have a town employee with an accessibility to give that perspective type thing. Yes, we have the accessibility committee, but that committee was dissolved 2 months ago. 2 months ago. So 4 months before the next election, which we could have delved into with the parking at Tony Rose. Again, so we seem to be making the parking further away from the entrances, making it harder. That's my 2 cents.
I can turn over to Mr. Koselleck there to speak about Tony Rose specifically.
Yeah, through your worship, just want to speak with Tony Rose. We were looking at keeping that spot originally. When the contractor came in, there was some miscommunication and they put the curb right through both areas. But looking at it, being in the middle of a stop-controlled intersection and it was an undersized parking spot, trying to look at the option, we're going to be putting an extra parking spot in the parking area. Right now, there's 3 accessible spots, the type A, the smaller ones. What we're looking at doing is taking out one of those spots and 2 regular spots and put 2 of the type A, which are the regular spots, and 2 of the type B van spots. So we'll have that spot in there, but in addition, we'll have 2 accessible van spots in the area. It's hard being in the middle of an intersection right by the stop signs and people crossing. Part of it was a concern with safety, and part of it didn't make the standard. And I guess there's pros and cons to both options, but at the time, that's what we think will be the best option. We do have an in-house person that is reviewing it, so we're getting some comments from them as part of the application.
Just going to also turn it over to CAO Smith.
I just want to build on something Mr. Koselleck said, and thank Mr. Jackson for his comments. We have hired a accessibility specialist on a short-term basis, highly qualified, highly experienced, highly smart on all things accessibility, incredible lived experience, and that's an interim measure. We've done reports on this. We've commented on that. We plan to include in the 2027 budget a full-time or a permanent part-time position with AOD specialist. So upon receipt of the approved budget, we'll be hiring that on a permanent basis. But in the meantime, we do have the tools and abilities. One of the challenges we've got, and the spot outside, that we've said this before, when we had the Ability Center come in and do a review, they said the spot out front behind me here doesn't meet accessibility standards. It's there, but it's not wide enough. So we can choose to do it poorly and keep doing it, or we can make decisions to do it. So the decision was made to move the spot to the north of the building and make it the right size, the right marking, in a safe spot. So those types of transitions will happen. Do we need to get better? Yes, I've acknowledged that. We've acknowledged that. We have hired somebody to help us do that, and we're looking forward to the new beginning in 2027 with a permanent part-time person.
Thank you, CAO Smith. Councillor Stevens?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I just would like to make a comment. Access Orangeville hasn't been dissolved. It's just we canceled the last 2 meetings, and it's still available if the chair calls the committee back into action. And I also wasn't happy when the accessibility spot at Tony Rose was taken away, but staff have made recommendations that we're going to put it in where they all are at the side entrance, just off the sidewalk. It's probably going to be the same distance if you, instead of walking out the door and you go right, this way you're going to walk out the door and you're going to go left, and you're going to have 4 that are properly designed and built, and I believe that's going to happen very shortly.
Mr. Koslek?
Yeah, through your worship, the contractor will be in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so we're going to have it done before Labor Day weekend, before school starts up, and before the arena opens in full force.
Thank you. And on February 9th of 2026, I made the motion and Councillor Andrews seconded it for this recommendation because Tony Rose and ODSS is a major issue when the school lets out, and in the morning when drop off, someone's going to get hurt. And I'm going to stand behind council's decision. And although I feel bad for the drop-off area being taken away, but I stand that safety has to be paramount. So, thank you.
Is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to speak? We just need your name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Rick Ugolini, Cedar Drive, Orangeville. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and staff. I just have a couple of questions. And one, Rotary Park. Any idea when Rotary Park is going to be started? Because people are asking, it's been out of commission now, the playground area, for a couple of years. And I noticed that kids are growing out of the playground timeline, and people are asking, when's it going to be ready?
If you have other questions, if you just want to finish up your questions first, and then I'll have staff answer them.
Okay. Then my next question would be, these parking spots at Tony Rose, are they going to have access aisles as well?
Mr. Koslek did just answer that one. That was to have the van parking, yeah.
Through your worship, the 2 spots will be the van accessible, so they'll have the access aisle. The other 2 will stay as the traditional accessible spots and wouldn't have an access aisle.
Okay, and Heather, do you want to take Rotary Park?
Thank you, Mayor Post. Mr. Ugolini, we are just in the midst of receiving our site plan approval. We submitted our permit for CVC. There was a bit of a holdup there, but we recently have received our permit through CVC, waiting on site plan approval. Our architect is working with the staff to develop the tender. We should have a general contractor in place and a kickoff meeting by the end of September, and we are hoping to install that playground by the end of the year. Rubberized surfacing may be installed the following year just because it won't cure over the winter. So we're going to watch Mother Nature.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ugolini. Thanks. Was there any other questions from the gallery? Yep, come on up, Tammy. And we'll just get your name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Tamara Limebeer, 8 Feed Street. Mayor Post, members of council, and CAO Smith. Earlier this summer, I wrote to Mayor Post and CAO Smith about accessible parking infrastructure and a gap I believe exists in ensuring that it remains accessible. Mr. Smith, thank you for your thoughtful response. You explained that the town has engaged an AODA specialist to examine the responsibilities in 5 different roles: employer, service provider, approver, enforcer, and advocate. I was genuinely encouraged to hear that, and I look forward to the report and the recommended path forward when the work is complete. But something happened today that reminded me why accessibility cannot wait for work to be finished. Earlier today, I picked up 2 children from summer camp at Tony Rose. Until recently, there was an accessible parking space near the entrance at the end of the drop-off area. With the recent redesign, the accessible space and drop-off area are gone. There is still designated accessible parking spaces elsewhere in the parking lot. Unfortunately, they don't provide the space I need to deploy a side ramp on my van. So today, I parked in regular parking, and I made my way from there to the entrance. The route was manageable. The pickup went fine. But accessibility shouldn't depend on somebody's ability to manage. I don't know what the final plans are for Tony Rose parking lot. There may be excellent accessible parking improvements coming, and I certainly hope there are. My concern is the time in between. I also don't know whether Access Orangeville was consulted before these changes were made. No. If they weren't, perhaps projects like this are an opportunity to involve our Accessibility Advisory Committee earlier, before an existing accessible feature is removed. Sorry. And when an existing accessible feature does have to be removed, could we make it a standard practice to have an accessible alternative in place before that happens? I think Tony Rose could be a useful real-world example as the AODA specialist considers the town's role as a service provider. Accessibility shouldn't only be measured by the finished project, it needs to be part of the transition too. I believe Orangeville is making progress. I've seen improvements. I appreciate them. I simply hope that as we continue to go from good to great, we remember the people who need accessibility while we're getting there. Because accessibility doesn't wait for the next phase of a project. It doesn't wait for the next report. And accessibility doesn't take summer vacation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Limebeer. Appreciate that. Mr. Koslek, did you want to speak to the timeline a little bit?
Yeah, through your worship. I guess it wasn't a planned item to take it out. It was when the contractor did the work, so it just happened very recently. I think it was last week they put the curbing in, so it wasn't a planned item that we'd circulate out to the committee. We're having the contractor back in. They had to go do some work in another municipality, but they'll be back in about 2 weeks to complete the work. And we'll try and get it done as soon as we can. And it's one of the things, typically we try and do things ahead of time, so we have an option done, but in this case it didn't work out that way, but it's something we try and focus on.
Go ahead, Ms. Limebeer.
Was the curb a boo-boo and you're just making the best of it?
Mr. Koslek?
I guess part of the curb was a boo-boo, but the plan was to take it out in the area and to leave the accessible spot. They put it right through the area, and that's when it was looked at to see it was an undersized one. It was too narrow before, so we want to try and make it meet the standard and put it in the parking lot, and also have the opportunity to put 2 of the van accessible spots in that area because we know it was a concern. So we want to have it addressed and have it done properly.
So we apologize that that was your situation today, for sure. We would like our timing to work in the way that the accessibility is the first thought and not dealt with after the fact, because we don't want you to ever be without an accessible parking space that's appropriate. Councillor Prendergast?
This is a procedural type question, but if council approved the initial motion with the accessible parking spot out front, and now those plans have changed, would we need to vote again? Like, should someone have been consulted before this change occurred?
CAO Smith? Can you turn on your, oh,
I said, we approved the plans as they were, with the accessible drop-off spot in front of Tony Rose, which I acknowledge is a huge loss, and accessibility should never be an afterthought. We know a lot of seniors use that site. We know people use the party room for drop-off pickup. It's a clear line of sight to the hockey rink. As a parent, I don't want to drop my kid off at the side of the building. I want to see them walk in. This is, to me, on council, it's a big issue, not a small issue, not a boo-boo. This is someone having to come into council who uses a wheelchair. Why does Tammy have to work harder to advocate for herself always? Why is that fair? Sorry, I just feel really passionately about this. I apologize.
CAO Smith?
I can respond to that, and thank you for the comments. I think without understanding the end result will be much better than what we have today. The end result will be much better than what we have today. We know the location of the spot there. Not saying that we're getting to the right spot the right way, but the end result will be there. It will have the parking spots that are big enough for the extra space that are required. That the current spot is on a major road. It's too narrow. It's feedback that we get saying, hey, it's not safe. It shouldn't be there. Well, it shouldn't be there. So the plan has different flow through the parking lot. It does have 4 spots, 2 of them at the right size, which we also get feedback that we need spots at the right size. Having a layout or a drop-off and pickup spot on that road within that new intersection, it's not safe. So I think when you take it in balance, when the overall plan is presented, we have traffic engineers who are experts in this. We have, I know that the outcome will be better than what we've got today.
Thank you, CAO Smith. Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Your Worship. On behalf of council, Tammy, I apologize if you had to go through that today. You shouldn't have to. No one should. All I can say is that, as COA Smith said, hopefully in the long run it's better. It didn't come to Access Orangeville because the spot wasn't supposed to be taken away. So, again, I'm sorry if you had to go through what you did today.
Thank you. Councillor Prendergast?
Last comment. CAO Smith, you just said that the traffic engineers are the experts, but it was the contractor who made the mistake, the decision, ultimately, the contractor made that decision to not include that spot that we all had agreed on was the best course. So I'm just going to leave that there. Everything after the fact is after the fact.
Okay, was there any other comments in open forum today? Oh, Tammy, very quickly, yep.
The integrative accessibility standards, I think it's 80.34, might be 80.35, requires every parking spot to have an access aisle. 2 parking spots can share an access aisle, but every parking spot needs an access aisle. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, was there any other comments for open forum? Go ahead, Michelle. You need to come up. You need to come up. You need to.
Michelle Hartley, Morgandale Crescent. I am going to mention something, watching my time. Mr. Garisto, I have been going to the roads you've been complaining about, and I do not see the issue. Now, tonight, everything was addressed, and I hope that when you speak again, it's about something new, something important. Thank you to the council for being here tonight and to the town. I did give a heads up that I would be speaking because I want to be transparent and I want to make the most of this time. So to everyone that spoke before me, you might have seen me on social media and knew I was coming to speak. I'm going to read 3 questions that I already sent to you, and then hopefully we can have an open dialogue. This is what I said. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. Thank you for this time. I will read the 3 questions exactly as I said. Number 1, please provide a status tonight on the Tony Rolls Arena pool. What is the next step in either the study and/or repair, replace? Any information is appreciated. Number 2, when is the playground at Rotary Park expected to begin being installed, completed? Is the Access Committee able to see the layout? Is it intended to be called an accessible universal playground? And what is the playground cost to the town, less grants, donations, RibFest money that's brought in, et cetera? Number 3, and you all had this word for word. With regard to the changes between ODSS and Tony Rose Arena, was this project brought before the Access Committee? I'm on it. I don't recall it being so, and I definitely would have argued and pointed out that the value of an accessible parking spot out front, it was an extra long spot. I drove a van there from Community Living, and I had the back lift come out. And if anybody is saying that there was a couple of feet or inches, you should have dug to the right. That's my saying right now. It also worked for a side lift. Can you confirm yes or no? Is left turns allowed now out of the ODSS parking lot? I didn't find a sign there saying that the answer is no. Sign says no stopping in front of Tony Rose now, 8 to 4, September to June. So then at night, sport families can stop there, creating havoc with the stop sign 7 feet behind them. I am curious if there was a report. If yes, what did it suggest? I'm curious too if lacrosse, hockey, and program users were so surveyed for their insight and feedback. Where is the new drop-off going to go? Where is replacing the accessible parking spot to go? You'd likely need to take 2 spots to replace the lift usage that was taken away.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so Rotary Park we've already addressed, I believe, so I think maybe you've got some additional questions, so go ahead. I'll turn it to you first, Heather.
Thank you, Mayor Post. Ms. Hartley. Rotary Park. So Rotary Park design concept was presented to Access Orangeville on July 3rd. There was some great recommendations, July 3rd, 2025. There were great recommendations that came out of that meeting, such as adding handrails, a wheelchair swing, rubberized surfacing instead of the mix between rubberized surfacing and the engineered wood fibers. So staff did take those recommendations back. They did implement them into the plan to the tune of about an additional $40,000. The overall cost of the playground is just shy of $600,000. So now we're at about $640,000 with a very generous contribution from the Rotary Club of $250.
The 640, is that the?
640 is the total.
So then how much did Rotary donate, the RibFest donate?
$250,000.
So we less that.
The taxpayers, yes, there'll be, sorry, not taxpayers, but the municipality will be responsible for 640 less 250,000.
Okay. And no steps in the playground. It is going to be completely accessible for a walker, a stroller, a wheelchair, all the way up.
Not among, there will be lots of areas where people can access. I'm not sure if all of the steps have been removed. There are slides still remaining in the playground structure.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
Tammy see it?
It's already been to Access Orangeville, and that was, all those comments were taken from Access Orangeville to the final design. Yeah.
Sorry, Mayor Post. We took recommendations from Access Orangeville, implemented in the new design. 100% of those, I'm not sure which ones were, but the things that were allowed us to move forward in a timely manner and that were not cost prohibitive.
Perfect. Was there any, so Tim, maybe for the next component?
Yeah, I guess for the three-way stop, there will be left turns allowed out of the school parking lot, being it's a controlled intersection. It'll be safe for people to turn left, so there shouldn't be any issue restricting it. And also, I guess with the drop-off, I know Community Services is looking at opportunities to tweak the parking in the area, but also allow for more drop-off areas. So it'll be done later this year.
Heather, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I'll just comment. Right now, we are redesigning a drop-off area along the west side of the building. It is in the design phase. We are going to, yes, along the side of the building, there's 2 lanes and a pedestrian walkway there. We are going to change the flow of traffic, so how you would normally enter into the Tony Rose parking lot will be the exit. You'll enter on the far side, drive all the way around Arena B and up through by the pool and out. It's going to become a natural drop-off anyways, and it's going to be right at that door. There'll also be the 4 accessible parking spots on the left, and we will build sidewalks and proper walkways from the parking lot, from the accessible spots over to the front of Tony Rose.
Perfect, thank you.
It's in the design phase. We're going to have to figure that out.
Figure it out. Figure it out.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Michelle. You've got a couple of seconds left, so go ahead.
Okay, so it's pretty clear here, you screwed up. Contractor screwed up, messed up. Messed up? Yeah, they did. So we need that accessible parking spot back, my opinion. If it's not this big, you could have moved over the concrete and dug it out. It's a loss, it's an oversight, it's gonna be a failure.
We've heard your comments. We appreciate that, Michelle. Thank you very much. Okay, was there anybody else during open forum? Mr. Ugolini, last question? We need to get on with the rest of the agenda. We have a hefty agenda tonight, so.
My question is, with the boo-boos that are happening around town, is there anybody going around checking on this stuff?
Sorry, I don't understand your question. Can you repeat your question?
Okay, like the boo-boo at Tony Rose. Is there anybody going around checking this stuff to make sure boo-boos don't happen?
Yes, we have our staff taking care of projects, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any additional questions during open forum? If not, we're going to move on to, yes, very quickly.
Thank you for your time, Zoe, 69 Madison. Just one other thought I meant to share earlier on development opportunities. If we did more lateral building and less one-story ground coverage, maybe some mixed use instead of huge plazas that are all commercial, maybe housing on top, just some food for thought that we could cover less surface area that way. Thank you.
That's exactly what most of our development going forward looks like, because we don't have any land left in Orangeville to go the other way. So it is mostly infill development that's happening. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, if there's no further questions during open forum, we're going to move forward into presentation. Oh, Ms. Savage, do you have something you wanted to add? Sorry, go ahead.
I did not answer Ms. Hartley's question about Tony Rose.
Apologies, please go ahead, yeah.
Yes, okay. And I believe she's left, so for everyone else. We are doing user group consultations, so anybody who regularly uses Tony Rose, we are meeting with them on September 17th and 21st. This is our hockey leagues, soccer leagues. Anybody who may require indoor space from the town of Orangeville, they are closed invite. The invites have already gone out. They're closed sessions. We are going to ask those hard questions. What is it that you need today? What do you need in the future? And how much are you willing to spend on it? Then once we have that information, we then take, in 2027, we intend to go out to the broader community. We intend to analyze what our user groups need, compare them to the recommendations made in the 2020 Parks and Rec Master Plan, go out to the community and see what is still true. What is it? Are these true? Is this what we want? What are we looking at? With a report to council by the end of next year, and then build the plan into the 10-year capital plan moving forward as of 2028.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Savage. Appreciate that. Okay, so we will move into presentations, petitions, and delegations. We have nothing for 12.1, so 12.2 is staff consultant presentations, and we do have Ms. Savage doing the non-resident fee framework for core recreation programs. I will turn it over to you, Ms. Savage.
Thank you again, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Good evening. Staff have designed a framework to address non-residents' use of core recreation programs. This framework applies to County of Dufferin municipalities only. Other neighboring municipalities will not be granted the same advantage to the Orangeville services. Next slide, please. Here. So Orangeville taxpayers are solely funding operating and capital costs for programs and facilities. The total is approximately $6.5 million. Non-residents account for 25 to 40% of our users. So across, that is all non-residents, not just Dufferin, but in general, non-residents are accounting for just less than half of our users at our facilities. We are positioned as a regional recreation hub. Currently, non-residents pay 25% surcharge per registration to participate in recreation programs. This covers less than 1% of the annual cost that it requires to offer these programs. This is not a sustainable cost recovery model. So in January, staff started meeting with the Dufferin CAOs to discuss potential cost recovery methods. The intent was twofold. Orangeville shares the financial burden, and Dufferin municipalities didn't have to pay to build facilities and offer these programs. It was a form of cost avoidance. After multiple meetings, we collectively determined that Dufferin municipalities lacked the ability to offer core recreation programs, swimming, skating, and camps, and heavily depended on Orangeville to create this opportunity for their residents. The staff working group developed a cost-sharing framework for non-residents where each Dufferin municipality would pay an annual fee, and in turn, their residents will access all recreation programs, not just core, as though they were a resident. No surcharge or delay registration. And I'd just like to clarify something. I know Deputy Mayor Taylor, you had a question about what about hockey leagues? We are focusing just on core programs. We recognize that's where the dependability is on Orangeville. Hockey leagues, soccer leagues, everybody else, that is governed by our facility allocation policy that requires all of our leagues to have a minimum of 75% resident rate. If they don't, they're not eligible for the discounted rate or any of the advantages that come along with the affiliation program. In the current approach, non-residents are charged 25% surcharge and can't register until 3 days after Orangeville residents, often being placed on wait lists because programs are full at that point. The costs are primarily placed on the Orangeville tax base and the residents from Dufferin and the resident who is choosing to pay for that program. The issue is not whether non-residents should have access. They should, and the Orangeville programs support quality of life across Dufferin County. The issue is how to create a fairer, more transparent, and more predictable way to recognize the costs of providing that access to these programs. The proposed framework requires the municipality to share in the costs to build and to offer these services. It will create equal access to not just swimming, skating, and camps, but to all recreation services. We are basing it on core because we recognize that's important, but it will open it up for all programs. The funding model is just based on core. I said that already. Next slide, please. This slide outlines the framework logic. It's based on core programs and only represents both operating and capital costs that support the core programs. A calculation was done for each municipality that considered two figures, population and usage of that municipality. The approach uses the 2023 program usage rates as the primary factor because that was the year when residents and non-residents had equal registration and opportunity to participate. Population is included as a secondary factor to recognize municipal size. The base cost includes the tax-supported operating costs and an average of the capital costs for those core programs. Allocation method, you see on the slide, 90% based on 2023 programs and 10% on population. So usage was weighted higher in the formula at 90% and population was weighted at just 10%. Staff felt it was important that the formula reflected higher costs for higher participation rates. Of all the non-residents, the highest users are Mono at 38% of all new non-resident users and Shelburne at 24% of all non-resident users. Staff recommend an annual cap for those municipalities that have extremely low usage, such as Malmer or Melancton. And the cost-sharing model would be captured in a 4-year agreement. Once per term over that 4-year agreement, Orangeville staff would rerun the numbers. We'd level set, we'd do a reset of the usage rates, which would determine the cost for the next term. Is their usage rates higher? Is their population higher? In that case, the annual amount would increase. If the usage or population is lower, the annual amount will decrease. Maybe they open up their own pool. Next slide, please. The model is intended to be evidence-based, but also implementable. If council approves the framework, staff will work with Dufferin municipalities to phase in the annual fees over time. This is not meant to be burdensome. Rather, together we hope to build a regional service that is transparent and accessible by all. So in the case of the formula, we build the base cost based on operating costs and capital. We apply the blended formula, the usage versus population. This is the preferred model. There will be flexibility throughout the term to redefine what that cost is. And we would apply caps. We approach it as 3 tiers. Tier number 1 is the average cost for the higher users. In this case, it would be Mono and Shelburne. Tier 2 would be less than 4% of usage. These are capped contributions for East Garifraxa, Amaranth, Grand Valley. And then tier 3 is minimal usage, Malmer, Melancton, and they would be capped, their contributions would be capped as well. So it would be a set rate. Participating municipalities, they would contribute, residents would receive equal access. So no longer do they have to pay the 25% surcharge, or would their registration ability be delayed by any time frame. They are able to jump in the queue with all Orangeville residents, recognizing that they will now be contributing both operating and capital costs towards Tony, Rose, and Alder, and the core programming and the programming across the board. All of the annual fees would be subject to a 2% indexing cost. And if we were to collect all the contributions from each of the municipalities, it would recover between 15% and 20% of the eligible net costs. Next slide. So overall, we see this as a benefit both to Orangeville and to our neighboring municipalities. We would work collaboratively to develop this regional framework for recreation services. It will also allow other municipalities to plan what type of facilities they need. They don't want to duplicate services. If we can work together, or if there's something they need from us, maybe we learn to build that out if we are the regional hub. It allows equal opportunity across Dufferin. So the next steps are, provided the framework is approved this evening, we would meet with each Dufferin municipality to review the framework, the calculations, answer any questions, and the implementation approach. We would develop agreement terms, including annual contributions, phased payment methods, and administration. Report back to council with any proposed intermunicipal agreements or actions requiring approval, and incorporate approved agreements and municipal shares into the 2028 budget. We would give next year an opportunity to discuss the terms of the agreement and allow our neighboring municipalities an opportunity to put it properly, to plan for it in their budget. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather. I really appreciate all the work that's been done on this. I know that staff and CAO team have put in a significant amount of work in this and working with the area CAOs to make sure that they're on board and understand what's happening through this process and that they've been a part of it. So just really appreciate all the work that you've done. I see a lineup of questions. So we're going to start with Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And Heather, thank you so much for the work that you've done on this. I think to think about why this work is so important and it's going to sound a bit negative, but the reason the work is so important is because Orangeville's taxes are so darn high. And this is one of the reasons why, is because decisions were made back in the day to build arenas. Alder, in particular, should never have been built under the circumstances that we did them as a town. And that is, Orangeville took it all on our own, on the taxpayers' backs, and footed that. And it's frustrating to me that that's what happened back in the day, but we need to find a new path forward. Our friends, and they are friends, they're our neighbors, would say that they have paid their share. They've paid the operating costs. It doesn't work that way. You know, we've got a building that we paid for, and that is ongoing, and it's frustrating to me that they would talk about what their tax rate is, yet we're stuck at the tax rate that we're at. And so, although this is friendly and it's a way, I love the fact that we're giving 12 months notice. I think it's great that we're trying to work together and be friendly, but our backs are against the wall. And to continue on the path that we're on makes zero sense. So I wanted to bring that out about why this work is so important. A couple of thoughts, if I could. One I sent to you, and I wanted to just get that I think finance is going to answer. But the other one is, the 2% fee that we would do annually, I appreciate why we would have that, because our costs are going to continue to escalate as time goes on. But I wonder if we'd be better to index it to inflation at a certain point in the year. And just in my day work, I do have contracts that come up, and we pick a point in time. Like one in particular I'm thinking of, it's the end of September. And each year it's what's the annual 12-month CPI. And that is used for what the increase will be in the following year, and it's implemented in January. So you take a point in time and go. And why I say that is, yes, there was a period of time where inflation was under 2%, and we would potentially benefit. But the reality is the last 4 or 5 years, it's been way above 2%, and just something for you to consider as you're going through. And then my question to finance, which I did send ahead of time, is I'd love to just understand how the percentages would work. Like, what is it that Orangeville's paying now in terms of percentage? And again, if it's there already, I'd just love it if we could review it. It's exactly what I'd sent to you, Heather, but what is the percentage that Orangeville's paying now? And what do we currently receive from our neighbors in terms of percentage? So is it 95.5? And then it would be under this new setup. If it's 95.5 today, and making that up because I don't know, what does it go to in the future as a rough estimate? Like, do we go to 72.28? And if so, is that good? Or like, what is our benchmark? I don't even know if 72.28 would be good. Are we recuperating at that point? Like, how do we know if that's right?
I do have Cheryl and Shane on the line one of them can hop up and answer, I believe. Shane, yeah? Perfect.
Good evening, through you, Mayor. I'd say currently, for the framework, we tried to get down to a pure operating and capital cost that was supported by the Orangeville taxpayers at 100%. So that's that $4.5 million number that you see in the report. So it's $3.3 million in operating and $1.2 million in capital. So that's what's supported by the Orangeville levy. That's been adjusted to remove any development charge funding that would come, any user fees that we had collected. So that gets to 100%. And then from there, we looked at methods to allocate that $4.5 million across the municipalities in Dufferin County, which is what Heather had spoke to earlier in her presentation. So there's a component of it that's based on the usage, and there's a component of it that's based on population. So with that, we've estimated under that framework that we could potentially recover somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% of that $4.5 million through that framework. I'm subject to the conversations that would come with the other area municipalities.
Okay, thank you very much, Shane. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I think all of us were very quick to request to speak I think many of our questions are probably going to be very similar. So first of all, I want to thank you and the staff for providing this report. It is long overdue for those of us that have been on this term and the previous term. The costs just have not been supported other than the support from our tax base. Deputy Mayor Taylor, same commentary that I was going to make regarding inflation. The baseline here, I think the 2% is conservative. I think we really have to maybe, look at ways of recouping that as we move forward. I like what you said about cost avoidance. And again, I'm not pointing the finger at the other municipalities, but they have had a sweet deal for a number of years where we have had to pay, the tax base has had to pay for capital in particular. The piece that I wanted to highlight in my commentary, and I really don't have a question because our Deputy Treasurer has already answered that. The concern that I have is looking at things retroactively. And we can't go back, looking at, Alder, what it cost back in 2002, 2003, and other costs that have, of course, occurred over a period of time. But was that calculated in some capacity through your discussions to take a look at things moving forward, or do we look at some form of retroactive, cost recovery for this process that we're going to be hopefully approving at this council meeting this evening?
Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mayor Post. To you, Councillor Andrews. No, we have not considered any retroactive payments. We do know we have major capital works happening at Tony Rose, so we will in time figure out what the cost and the price tag of that's going to be. So strategically, we would then hopefully share some of that capital costs and those opportunities, those increased opportunities of recreation services with our neighboring municipalities.
I don't want to open up a can of worms, and nor is it the appropriate time to be talking about retroactive, but I think, we all have a passion on looking at things of defined equity and responsibility, and I know that our neighboring municipalities certainly enjoy the opportunities of the core programs that are offered through our Recreation Department, Community Services, and the facilities that we provide, but there comes a point in time when you do have to pay, and I'm happy to see that. Last comment was pertaining to the reflection of the library, and Councillor Pendergrass and I sit on the library board, and we went through that same exercise of looking at individuals who, in fact, are using the library from outside our municipality, and it really came down to, as I recall, and again, it turned out to be a significant number, and we wanted to find a happy medium on what is defined as equitable, and I think we did land with the library board, and I'm hoping that moving forward that this particular metrics that you've presented in your presentation is one that will end up supporting the needs across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. Thank you, Ms. Savage, for this report. It was a long time coming, and I think it will be received very positively from our neighboring municipalities. Feedback that I often hear from parents around these core skills, like swimming especially. Orangeville, we have the only indoor pool, right? And it's really hard to get into swimming lessons. If you live in Mono, you don't have a choice. You have to come here, but you would have to wait. So that would mean that if you lived on another side of the street, your kid didn't get into swimming lessons. So I think this will be an easy sell to the neighboring municipalities when their residents realize that they're able to sign up at the same time as Orangeville residents. But with this will also better inform our programming, right? So now we'll be able to see where those gaps are, and hopefully we'll be able to hire for more programming based on where the actual need is. I see this as a really positive first step. Thank you for providing this.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Although I respect you wholeheartedly, I'm going to disagree. I think Orangeville residents should still get to apply first. We live here. We have to, this is where we shop. This is where we play. And I think they should get the right to access the services here first. My colleagues might disagree, and that's the way it works. But I really think that, if I miss out because I want to put my children in swimming lessons, now I have to go to Shelburne and I'm going to have to pay more, I'm not going to be happy. So I really think we should still get to have a day or two. That's my opinion on that. I do have two questions. The other municipalities, have they agreed to basically paying what they're going to be told to pay? And a follow-up, and how are you going to, if we decide as a group, or next council, we want to fix Tony Rose, do they get input on that?
Ms. Savage?
Through you, Mayor Post, Councillor Stevens, good questions. First question, do they get input? Yes, we would like to invite them even to our user group consultations. If they're debating whether or not they should build a facility, and it's 20 minutes down the road and we have capacity and they're willing to support ours, I would suggest we have that conversation and figure out how does it work. Now, Orangeville first, I understand that. Does it meet our needs? And will it meet the greater need to be positioned as a regional recreation center? I think that there could be some collaborative conversations around what does that look like, just on a grander scale. And the other question?
Can you go ahead for a sec? Go ahead, Councillor Stevens.
Just basically, are they okay with being told what they're going to pay, whether it's 25% or whatever it is?
Right. So we've been meeting multiple times with the Dufferin CAOs, lots of questions. We started off with 3 options of a framework. We narrowed it down to this option where it's an annual fee. We seem to be getting a lot of support, but it's at the staff level. We have not yet shared any figures, not until we have council approval to move forward. Our next step will then to meet with each of the municipalities individually, share what we feel is an appropriate annual fee, talk about how that annual fee would be implemented in their municipality, and then of course they would need approval from their council as well. We have a very strong mini working group, Shane, Sharon, Shauna, and Andrea. We will be going on a road show and chatting with each of the councillors, at each council meeting, and supporting staff to be able to implement this. So far, CAO Smith, you'd probably agree. Sure, go ahead.
CAO Smith, do you want to add some input?
I'll just add and acknowledge the great work the committee has done. I've attended every meeting with the CAOs, and I would just add to it that we have to develop something that people will agree to. And through this process, there has been some asks that we've said, yeah, we can work with that. And there's been some asks we've said, no, we can't work with that. So I think we're in a good spot from the chief administrative perspective. Hopefully they've been briefing their councils, and I know for a fact some of them have. They do need to agree, so that's a process that we're going to go through. I suspect Heather's going to be visiting a number of council chambers over the next period of time. But if we come to something, our message has been fair, reasonable, transparent. It's not to be crippling. It's to get us on a path, and we can move forward on that path. And to date, we've seen good success with Heather's leadership and the team.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Taylor?
I wanted to say what you were saying, CAO Smith. So the idea to me, if the shoe was on the other foot and all of the rec centers were in mono, I would be saying, what's in it for me? You know, so there's no way I would sign up for Orangeville if there wasn't something in it for me. And there has to be equal footing. So with respect to you, Councillor Stevens, I don't know why Mono or other municipalities would sign up unless their residents were treated in equal fashion if they were paying their fair share. They do not deserve to be treated that way currently because they're not paying their fair share. But if they were, that would be an expectation. And the other piece is, we can't dictate to other people what they're going to do. They have to see value. I love how you just framed it. They have to feel like they're treated in a fair, compassionate way. And I can tell everyone that there is sidebar conversations going on. And Mayor Creelman of Mono, who is a very reasonable, thoughtful individual, has counseled Mayor Post and I about what the conditions would be. And it needs to be fair. And he said that he would listen and be a good neighbor and be a good steward. And that's all we can ask him to do. But if we go back to him with something different, there's no way he would say yes. He'd be a fool to do so. And so would we if the shoe was on the other foot. So anyway, it's my take.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm seeing no further questions from council. Everybody good? So the recommendation is that the report be received and that council approve the proposed non-resident fee framework as outlined in the report as a basis for discussion with municipalities in Dufferin County, and that staff be authorized to proceed with municipal discussions to determine each Dufferin municipality's contribution by using the framework, and that staff report back to council with the outcomes of those discussions, including any proposed agreements, financial implications, and recommended implementation approach prior to entering into any agreement. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Prendergast and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to head into a consent agenda, but before we do, if we can just take like a 10-minute break, we will be back at 25 after. vote for council. Council may remove any item from the consent agenda. I have already been notified that 13.1.3, 13.1.4, 13.1.7, 13.1.8, 13.1.12, 13.2.2, and 13.2.9 have been removed from consent. Was there anything else that anybody would like to remove from consent? 13 no, that's corporate strategic plan. Yep, so we're good. So that is everything. So then the recommendation is that all the consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the items that were removed for individual consideration. And then just for staff purposes, I'll read it one more time. 13.1.3, 13.1.4, 13.1.7, 13.1.8, 13.1.12, 13.2.2, and 13.2.9. Other than those, can I have a mover and a seconder for the remaining? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that is carried. So we will start then with 13.1.3, which is the report on the proposed sign bylaw. Deputy Mayor Taylor, you pulled that one. I will turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I did send my question ahead of time, and I want people to know that I had a spirited conversation on the phone today with our bylaw officer. So I think I know already, but I think it's important that the public hear what was discussed about this sign bylaw. And my issue with the sign bylaw in particular is the profane language portion of the bylaw. So I'm just reading what I sent as my question, but I read with great interest the rationale for the exclusion, but I remain worried and offended that we would allow people to use the profane language in the signage. So specifically, if to be blunt, what I'm referring to is when I see things like F somebody, I wish we wouldn't allow that to be there. There was incidents of a major street where children were walking across to go to school. We had many complaints about it, and I would have liked to have seen us action that and have the sign removed. I know now that that's difficult to do, but I did want to have bylaw speak to it in a public forum, and just so everybody understands the reasons why, I guess, essentially I'm going to lose this and we can't do it. But my question would be to Mr. Bramley, I guess, who I think is online.
Is Mr. Bramley on the line? Yes, perfect. Okay, go ahead, James.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. And again, thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, for this question again, as we spoke earlier about this. And I want to explain the rationale as to why the current bylaw has a prohibition on signs that depict sexually explicit content, sex, and violence, and where staff has recommended that we don't prohibit profane language. So under the current bylaw where we do prohibit these specific items, this is because under the criminal code, under 163, we already, the province has articulated and provided clear distinction of what a prohibition of this would be under obscene nature. They provide clear definitions, they provide clear direction on this, and this is why we are able to have this prohibition, because we're already mirroring a prohibition under what the criminal code currently has. The challenge we face when we look to prohibit profane language is that there's no clear definition or articulation through any legislation that speaks to what profane or offensive language could be. The reason for this is because it is under certain purviews and what interpretation comes to. And that's the challenge when we look at it, because it's protected under the Charter rights, freedoms of freedom of expression. We can't prohibit and prevent people from speaking their opinions, expressions on certain aspects. And it is challenging to find or fight profane language or things that we find offensive, because it is based on interpretation, and there is enough case law behind us where it becomes challenging and could open us up to charter violations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bramley. Appreciate that. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. had the opportunity to review this, and then, as many of us on council do, we review it again before our council meeting, and I should have posed a question to Mr. Bramley, and I apologize for not doing so, but after reviewing the proposed bylaw that is a little bit further in our agenda, something came up, and I thought, is there a component of this bylaw that would include this? And so what I'm talking about is an example of pop-ups. So these would be where you have a business that has an impromptu pop-up, which is now happening in many locations as a marketing tool. It's usually one day for a sale or something like that. And or one of our local large grocery chains had a impromptu event that I actually dropped by earlier this summer. And you have the 50-foot trailer. You have advertising that happens to be visible from a specific area, opportunity for the general public, which in fact was embracing this event, but it was literally a drop in and move out. Where does something like this fall under? It is defined as a gray area, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I know I have, and this is again something we can possibly take offline, but I was trying to see where it falls within this existing documentation that has been provided to council.
Mr. Bramley?
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. And again, through this, I would like to be able to provide a full response on this. And if you don't mind taking this back so I can provide a written response on this, so I'm not talking off the cusp and just piecemealing through the bylaw. As preliminary, I'll say this would be a temporary sign in nature if it is a pop-up. But again, I want to review the details of your question in detail.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Bramley. And again, I apologize for not sending it to you earlier, but again, timing is always of the essence when we're prepping for our council meetings. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Bramley. Similar to Deputy Mayor, I forwarded my questions ahead of time and had an extensive phone conversation with you as well. I hope I was before Deputy Mayor. And I just want to discuss in the public what you and I talked about. In the public meeting, I had mentioned about two things that I felt were missing from the sign bylaw, one being blade signs, because we know we have blade signs along our downtown, more particularly, and also murals. And in your report, you've helped me understand why a mural is not considered a sign. It's more of a art installation, even though I wanted to challenge you by saying if they put the mural on a board and then that board gets put up on the wall, is it then a sign? And your answer was no. Unless, let me just, can you tell me again what the criteria was? Sorry, I don't want to repeat what I don't really know for sure.
Mr. Bramley?
No. Thank you, Mayor Post, and thank you, Councillor Sherwood. And for clarification, so when we look at what a sign is, so we define within the bylaw what a sign is, we define what a mural is, and we define what an art installation is. So the sign bylaw in itself is a bylaw to regulate signage, and signage is meant to advertise, promote, or give direction towards any sort of business, product, service, or like thereof. In past discussions with council, when we look at art installations, such as the Love logo that came out front, we looked at creating a clear definition so we didn't have to come up with a minor variance, and that's why we came up with art installation, that definition. In the past bylaw and in the current bylaw, murals were not included under the definition of what a sign bylaw is. We added a definition to provide further context. So in this case, where you're stating if something is painted on the side of a building, whether it is on the brick face or a board that is physically attached to a building, as long as that does not contain an advertising material such as a logo, a name, directions of where the business is, or any context towards that event, it would be considered not a sign and just a mural or an art installation, and not therefore being a sign and needing that permit process. If there were a mural or a painting, something put on the side of a building that contained any of this advertising information directing towards the business, product, services, or thereof, it would then become a sign underneath the regulations of the bylaw. To further that, under the protections for, say, the downtown core, where we have our heritage buildings, properties designated as a heritage building are still protected, even though murals aren't defined as a sign, because as a designated building for under the Heritage Act in itself, to protect the heritage aspects of the property, they would require a heritage permit to put up that mural. And if any murals or alterations to the heritage aspects dedicated underneath their heritage designation are altered, enforcement and protection measures are placed within our property standards bylaw to ensure that we can bring that property back into compliance of what the designation requires.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I have a follow-up for the second part. So at the public meeting, I mentioned about blade signs being included in the sign bylaw. And you've indicated in your report that blade signs fall under the terminology of a projected sign. So I'm going to tell you that the 8 years I've been on Heritage Orangeville, and I've also sat on the BIA, we all use the term blade signs. I've never known them as projected signs. So I appreciate the terminology, but after consultation with staff, I would just like to ask that maybe a small change be to the wording in the bylaw be as follows. So we retain the existing terminology while acknowledging the commonly used term by revising the definition as follows. Projecting sign means a sign which is affixed to a building, wall, or structure and which projects therefrom for a distance greater than 0.6 meters, but does not include a marquee or awning, and may also be commonly referred to as a blade sign. And so basically all I'm asking is in the terminology part of the bylaw that we add that a projecting sign may also be referred to as a blade sign. That way the word blade sign is in the sign bylaw, and if Heritage Orangeville still uses blade sign, and so does the BIA for offering rebates for the blade sign, we all know projecting sign and blade sign are the same thing.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I think that that's a pretty easy thing to do as amended. Yes?
Yes, since we don't have a mover and a seconder on the floor for this resolution, we can just add at the end of this recommendation, consider for approval in the bylaw portion of the meeting, as amended to include the amendment to the projecting sign definition.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Did you want to move it that way, Councillor Sherwood?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor McIntosh. Perfect. Was there any other questions or comments on the sign bylaw? No? All in favor then? And that's carried. At this time, I have to turn the chair over to the Deputy Mayor because I have to declare my conflict here. I'll give him the mic.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Post. And just to the clerk, am I going to be able to have people speak to this, or how will we do it? Will you just turn off the powers for this?
The queue is turned off. It's in open mode right
Excellent.
now.
Okay, thank you very much. So this item is 13.1.4, the BIA Central Counties Tourism. And the recommendation is as follows, that BIA Central Counties Tourism be received and that Council authorize the BIA Board of Management Chair and Vice Chair to execute the funding agreement with Central Counties Tourism. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Councillor Stevens, Councillor McIntosh seconds. Any comments or questions on this item? No? Oh, Councillor Sherwood, thank you. I got to keep the chair here a little while longer.
Yes, I want to keep you
That's right.
working for all
Thank
that hard
you.
money
Thank
you're
you.
earning. I just wanted to say that if we ever have an opportunity to get grants and money from someone other than our taxpayers, I say go for it. So this is a very encouraging thing, and I fully support it.
Okay. Seeing no other comments? None? All in favor? Yes, that's very good. Thank you, everyone, and we'll turn the meeting back over to Mayor Post here.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. So now we'll move into 13.1.7, which is the Winter Maintenance Summary Report. The recommendation is that the summary report be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that one, please? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor. So Councillor Andrews, you've got your hand up, so go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have my my hand up regarding this particular matter. And again, I want to compliment our staff for the report. I also want to compliment the staff for the hard work that they do in winter snow removal. As much as it is a compliment to them, we also get a number of complaints from members of our community, unfortunately. Timeliness, something is not done appropriately from a sidewalk removal. It goes on and on and on. I don't want to prolong that part of the commentary from members of our public. But I do want to end up highlighting a couple of key points in the report, and I want to make sure the general public is aware of this. So we know the last 2 winters have far exceeded a 5-year average in conditions, creating winter maintenance challenges. Each winter is different, over-resourcing is extremely expensive. The town currently provides a substantially higher level of service than what Ontario regulations require, and I stress that for the general public who was not aware of that, and what many other municipalities provide. There are larger municipalities that don't do what we do. There are municipalities that are smaller than us that do what we do and or don't do what we do. Snow removal services on sidewalks is a service that many other surrounding municipalities also do not provide. So we were talking about this earlier when Ms. Savage was highlighting, of course, the fee agreement proposal with the municipalities. And what's happened is members of our community become accustomed to seeing some of these services provided. They take it for granted, but they are the first to criticize when things aren't done properly. And I think what's most important is that people understand that this costs a lot, and there are the ebbs and flows of the climate change that we're dealing with. Despite whatever people may think about climate change, there are points of reference that things are costing more. Equipment can break down. You also have a rotation of staff that occur in this particular part of our snow maintenance process. And I didn't realize until this report came out, we have 120 kilometers of road that your team is responsible to take care of every time a snow situation occurs in our community. People are more concerned about just having the snow removed from their 50-foot lot in front or 60-foot lot or whatever amount of space they have. And if it's not done in a timely fashion, guess who ends up getting the call? Mayor Post, Deputy Mayor Taylor, and the rest of us on council, and or they contact you. I'm defending your staff because I understand the complexities that you're dealing with, and I see that there's an escalation in those costs. And so I do have a question based on some of the things that I've read, and I know other members of council have. With some of the costs that have gone up, wouldn't it be prudent to forecast a little bit more generous funding for your snow removal? Again, you start to have a baseline. You start to see analytically where we're going. And I think that, unlike previous times when, we didn't have a lot of snow, we do have those ebbs and flows if it happens to be an El Nino or an El Nino. Predicting that crystal ball can be a very difficult job for someone. So I think that the figures that have been highlighted in this report have been strategically put together, but I still think that, from a budgetary point of view, having a little more allocated to the snow removal budget as opposed to saying, well, we just don't have enough to cover the costs. Not to say that we would never be able to do that, but I've heard over this past winter how expensive it was, and it kept on getting more expensive. Salt and all the other items continue to go up. So that is my first question. Would that not be the prudent thing to do? And I'm posing the question to Mr. Koselleck, and I also have
Mr.
a
Koselleck,
second
go ahead.
question as well.
Through your worship, that's one thing with winter. You never know what you're going to get. I think it was 2 years ago we spent about $30,000 on snow removal. This year it was about $1 million.
Yeah.
So it does go up. We typically budget close to the average amount, and finance has a rate stabilization account where they can move money back and forth if needed, and I believe finance can comment more after, but it's one of those things that's hard to predict. We don't want to put $1 million in for snow removal, and at the end of the year, we have a year like 2 years ago and we barely use any of it. So we try and keep a balance and keep it around the average, maybe a little bit above average, but we try and keep the numbers as reasonable as we can in anticipation of a hopefully average winter.
Second question, Your Worship. I noticed that there have been some commentary locally, but also through connections I have with other municipalities. One of the things that has come up is the windrow removal. I know that that is an expensive consideration. We do have certain streets and arteries in our community where the developments themselves are rather compressed, and it becomes a challenge to remove some of the snow itself. And then you have neighbors piling snow on each other's driveways. And so has there been a thought, a scientific process to look at other options on how to remove some of the snow in those complex areas of our communities?
Mr. Koslak?
Through your worship, we do have information in the report on what the needs would be if
Yes.
we were going to do the snow removal.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think one of the maybe issues, people have seen it being done in a milder climate. If you're in Oakville, you don't get as much snow as Orangeville or areas in the snow belt. Plus, the snow melts. I think everybody will drive south in the winter, and all of a sudden you go from deep snow in the Orangeville area to green grass in Brampton and Mississauga. So typically, there isn't as much snow to remove, and it does melt a lot quicker. I think one of the items in this report, we have a graph showing snow depths that we had from CVC. One point I really notice is we started having snow in November last year, or this past winter. It never left. It kept increasing, whereas other years, we typically have a January thaw and it goes down to near zero. This year, we didn't. So that's where there's a lot of difficulty in finding places to push the snow and move the snow. And I guess one of the other items, we currently have a snow dump on Lackey Drive.
Yes.
This last winter, it was pretty full. So if we do have an enhanced service that we want to provide more removal, we'll have to look at additional storage areas for snow for the winter time.
Thank you, Mr. Koslak. My last comment is one on education. And I think that as much as those of us in council who've read this report, we know the information that has been provided, the data, I think it's unfortunately that our community, many members of our community have misinterpreted and or misspoke about what the reality is. They don't understand the complexity in snow removal, and when you have a challenging winter as we did have, and who's to say what will happen in the winter of 2026, 2027. We may have more snow. Whatever the situation may end up being, I think that we are well prepared. We are generous with where we are with sidewalk snow removal, and that may be something that is discussed at a future time, at a future term of council, if it turns out to be too expensive and or becomes problematic from a staffing perspective, equipment maintenance, and so on and so forth. So thank you for, again, the report, Mr. Koslak, and thank you to your team that does an incredible job in the winter.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I have quite a few here that I'd like to bring forth. The background behind this for me is we asked staff if they could come back with a report, and thank you very much, Mr. Koslak, for such a expansive report on what happened with snow clearing. To me, I think the number one issue we had was communicating with our residents about when the next clearing would be and where people were and what the situation was, that sort of thing. I love the Uber app. I travel quite a bit, and when I'm out, I can see when the Uber car is coming to pick me up, and I can see how long it's going to be to get there and whatnot. The idea that we would have this automatic vehicle locator system, I'd just love for you to talk a little bit about that, about when the launch would be, how it would work, how it will benefit our residents, and just a little bit more for me before I give that to you is, I had people who were friends of mine saying, Todd, that's not true. They never came and removed snow on my street. I'm like, I've known you for years. Why would I lie to you that they were there? So I'm hopeful that this program will show that, and we can have the history and be able to say, this is where they were, this is when they were there, and this is when they're coming. And if you could.
Mr. Koslak?
Through your worship, that's one of the things we're looking at going live this year. We did it last year as a little bit of a pilot project, so we can track our plows and our sidewalk plows to show where they are and where they have gone. So it'll show the plow went down this road, 1 hour, 4 hours, 6 hours, roughly when it went by, and it'll be able to show people when it's done. We don't have it forward-facing that'll project when people are going by, but typically you can see in an area when it's coming through and it'll tell you how it's been done. We did have that issue where you'd have some areas that were blown or cleaned out, especially with sidewalks. We had windy days with lots of snow. Sometimes they'd plow the sidewalks and an hour later people would go out and you couldn't tell. Just there was so much drifting and so much snow. So we're trying to do this. It'll help us with tracking the equipment, but also helps us monitor the equipment. We have a bit of a connection with it. We can see if it's overheating, if it needs fuel, different things like that. So we're looking at doing that as part of our new website. It'll probably be launched in December. We're hoping to do it a little earlier, but probably it'll be as part of the new website in December.
Very good.
Deputy Mayor?
If I may. So the next thought I had is the desperation of people at certain points in the year, and I'd say it's around the 20th of February, it starts to stack awfully high. You know, I had people plea with me for intersections because they couldn't see around, and it was a safety issue, right? But then as the politician, I look at it and think, oh my gosh, how much is this going to be? And it's a yin and a yang of safety and money, and what do we do? I used to, like, the first 30 years of my life were in London, Ontario, and we never pulled away snowbanks. I'd never saw it before until we moved to this wonderful town. What do other towns do? How do they mitigate this? You know, the expense, but the need is so confusing and pulls in both ways. Is there something else we should be doing?
Mr. Koslak?
Yeah, through your worship. A lot of it, there's not much you can do other than removing the snow. I know a lot of areas, they don't do removal. Snowbanks at driveways get to be 6-7 feet tall. It's very difficult. And we try and have two crews, one doing snow removal on the major roads like Broadway, First Street, and the curbside sidewalks. But we'll also have another crew going out trying to do some of the main fire hydrants, but also some of the intersections. So we try and focus the priorities on the safety issues, but big recommendation to people, slow down and don't widen your driveway to have 3 cars when you don't have anywhere to put the snow in the wintertime. I think that's one of the big issues we've had in town. People widen driveways and then they don't have a front lawn to put the snow. So that causes issues too. So, and I feel for people if they have multiple vehicles in it, but that's one of the problems that we're having.
If I could, and I'm not putting you on the spot, Mr. Koslak, but as a thought, when we get to that key inflection point of late February, early March, if communications could start to speak to the residents a bit more and explain where they are and what the plan is and when we're going to come and why we aren't going to come, because we're not going to do all spots to all people, I think it would really help. And that's just my personal thought. But as I think through the pressure points for me as a representative of the wonderful town we're in, that those were difficult spots. And Your Worship, if I may, I've got a few other ones, and I really do appreciate the report and the time. The bylaw piece, and I imagine Mr. Bramley's still on the call, but I had to explain to residents numerous times about how to park. And we've had diagrams, and I get that people have teenage children or 20-something children living with them, and now they're a 3 or 4 car family. I hear that. But so now you've got to park on the boulevard, and you can't have your mirror going over on either side. You can't be on the lawn on either side. Yet people still do that. And as I read the report, I always candidly thought we were a bit draconian. And then I read the report, and now I understand what you're trying to tell to us, and that is now the plow has to go around because clearly we're not going to take out the side mirror of a vehicle. But that means that we get wider and wider and wider into the street as we go. And initially it's only a little bit wide, and then it's a little bit wider and a little bit wider. My thought was, is our bylaw, like, are we efficient enough in what we're doing, either from a communication standpoint or from a fine standpoint? Should we be doing more in that way to prohibit what's costing us all?
Mr. Koslak?
Yeah, through your worship, I just want to mention a couple items, and then we'll see if James is on board to talk about the bylaw. But just, yeah, with the parking, we tend to pull a little bit further away from the curb, partly to give a little bit more snow storage for people. Their driveway gets full, the sides get full. We don't get right up to the curb because we don't want to damage the equipment, but typically we do pull a little bit further away. It provides a bit more storage. Otherwise, if we went right back to the curb, we'd be pushing all that snow back in everybody's driveway each time. So by inching out a little bit each time, we do give that little bit more snow storage. And it is difficult. If somebody parks parallel to the driveway, If you're trying to push snow with a sidewalk pallet or a truck, quite often you're pushing it very close to the vehicle. So our staff stay a little bit further away because we don't want to damage a vehicle by pushing snow, thick, heavy snow. And you feel for people when it all freezes around the vehicle, but there's not much we can do. I don't know if James is, no, okay.
No
James,
problem.
we can discuss more with him, but one of the things too, we're working with communications to have some procedures ready so it can go out every year. It snows at the beginning, every year it does this. So we're working with communications to have items ready to go, sort of in the hopper, so we can have a quicker turnaround to get things out to inform residents of any changes.
I'm just going to turn over to the clerk because she had something to add from the bylaw perspective.
Yeah, I let James go for the night. Wasn't expecting any further questions. But when it comes to the efficiency of bylaw enforcement, as you're aware, we have just started with our administrative penalty system. Our parking enforcement has just moved over to this system, and we are currently implementing the GTECHNA through the APS. So this is new technology that we're looking at to help increase the efficiency of our bylaw operations. We do have 24-hour bylaw enforcement for parking in winter months. So from November through to March, we do have that 24-hour overnight parking restriction coverage. So between the overnight parking coverage, winter parking coverage, as well as the implementation of this new technology, we should see much increased performance from our bylaw staff when it comes to winter parking enforcement.
Very fair. May I go again?
Yep.
Madam Clerk, just to be fair, I highlighted it in yellow and let people know I was going to ask that question about bylaws. So I didn't, that's not a surprise. I'm sorry, that might sound a little snarky. I don't mean it to. I just want you to know I didn't surprise anybody with a question here. The next point I would have is about the windrow, and if I'm saying that right. My thinking, and Councillor Andrews brought this up already, but it was so loud last year, people sending us videos of this machinery, and it happened to me numerous times, people sending me this information about technology that I wasn't even aware was existing at that time. And you've given a spot-on reason as to why, and I accept that. My suggestion would be is, we've done some great videos as a town, and Public Works in particular, to educate us on certain aspects of how we manage things. It would be great, I think, as a suggestion and on the spot here tonight, if we put something out about why we can't do that. Because I guarantee, as soon as it comes, we're going to get, why is it the Mississauga does this and Orangeville doesn't? And, I'm not sure I can do a great job of providing the rationale. It would be great if we had something to be able to share. Okay?
How many do you have left?
2.
Okay, go ahead.
I've waited 6 months for the report.
Councillor Prendergast has her hand up too, so I just want to be fair.
The salt and soil piece, the way the chart reads, it talks about the money that we spend on the salt and soil. What is the tonnage, cost per tonnage gone up by? Like, is it so prohibitive, or are we just using so much more? I'm sure you're going to say it's a combination, but it must have massively spiked to get to the spot that we are in the financials.
Mr. Koslak?
I don't think there has been a huge spike in it, a bit more in the trucking, but it's been a marginal increase. I think last year we just used so much. The winter didn't end, things didn't melt, so it was using more. One of the nice things, we built a new salt and sand dome about 2 or 3 years ago. Prior to that, we had a very small dome. We had to fill it up about 4 or 5 times through the winter. This new dome, we fill it up once, and we can get through almost the worst winter. Last year, we brought a little bit more in because it was such a bad year, but we have a lot of capacity, whereas other people were running out through the year. So it's nice having that extra storage, but it's a lot of it just the volume of salt that was used last year.
Very good. I have others, but you want me to cede the floor? Just keep.
One more. Yeah, you said you had 2, so.
I'm lying. I have 4 more.
Okay, then we'll turn it over to Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the turn. I just have one question/idea. I've been studying and looking into municipal climate adaptation. Would it maybe be high time for our town to establish a climate adaptation reserve fund? So when we have extreme snowfalls or flooding or extreme heat, it might be a chance for us to access these. And I don't want to compare this at all to the wildfires because it's not similar. But if we know in advance, and again, it's impossible to know that there's going to be more snow in advance, but if we have just a better system to triage the areas of importance, because I'm just going to reference, everyone knows I'm a teacher, but the areas around schools were abysmal, just absolutely unsafe. Kids had to walk on streets, and I know we had more snow than forever, but areas around schools were not prioritized. The sidewalks were not done first. And I think in a town of 30,000 that is predominantly walking to school only, that should be a priority for the sidewalk plows, like most definitely. Blind Line, Spencer, Princess Margaret. And I know sometimes it looks like they weren't done, but they were, et cetera, and the snowfall is so heavy. But it's just something that I did hear a lot, and I wanted to repeat it now.
Mr. Koselleck?
Yep, through your worship, just for the sidewalk plows, they typically are out at 4 in the morning, and we do prioritize the school areas. So they are done early on, and almost always they're done before the school opens. So we try and focus on that. With the snowbanks, it was a bad year everywhere. So we're trying to look at it, and we had some discussions on setting priorities, and we'll look at doing some changes. We'll also discuss with finance the options of how we can do the different funds. So we'll take that back and take a look at it.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I'll try and combine these to be quicker, but we talked a little bit about our operational facility, and basically we're tight in there. And so what will we do moving forward, and what's the timeline for utilizing that? And then the other piece was, I recall that there were times during the season last year where we were down equipment. And the reason we were down equipment is because the equipment had malfunctioned and the mechanic was working on them. The report talks to the need for another mechanic. It's also a recommendation in the report. And so my question on the mechanic part is how difficult, what's the probability? Sometimes we say we need these things and we can't seem to hire them for a variety of reasons or specialized skills. I just thought I could ask on those two things.
Yep, through your worship, it's one of the things we'll look at in the future, having a mechanic. I think we'll program it in a couple of years ago. One thing we did this year is we've hired a summer student, a mechanical summer student, and it's been a great advantage to have somebody come in and help out with a lot of it. Whether it's they're making a new brake line, whether it's going to pick up a part, whether it's going to do something. It's really showed that's useful. So that's one of the positions we'll be keeping, that student position. But we'll look at in the future with a mechanic. But right now there's a lot of priorities for those funds, so we'll see. And I guess one of the things we're always looking for opportunities for more space. Something like the old fire hall, it'd be great if we can repurpose that and use it somehow for equipment so we don't have to pay money for a new building. So we'll keep looking at different opportunities to see what can be done.
All good, Deputy Mayor?
Good.
Okay. Was there any other questions or comments? I don't see anybody else in the queue. We're good. Yes, CAO Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for all of the great questions and the staff for the report. I just wanted to point out for people that may not have read the report, maybe they're watching or something like that, it wasn't just a little bit more snow. It was catastrophic more snow than what we normally have. In 2023, 2024, we had 35 centimeters of snow. Last season, we had 157 centimeters of snow with zero melt. So I get concerned because I don't read on social media because I don't do that, but I hear anecdotally our staff are constantly berated and disparaged, and they work so hard every single day. And the comments people just type and say, think this was horrible. I think there needs to be a change in expectations and quite frankly, a reality check of what we're able to provide. The next iteration up, the next jump up to do increased service at 160 centimeters of snow is millions of dollars. And we can invest that, and then next winter we may get 34 centimeters. So just encourage people to think about the people that are out getting up, plowing the snow at 4 a.m. in the worst winter conditions you can imagine, in a machine that is, I've driven one. They are not fun. They're not pleasant. And we have a hard time recruiting those people. And why? Because they see on social media that people just berate them and bash them, and it's quite embarrassing, quite frankly, when people comment like that. So just encourage people, be kind, understand that there's extreme winters. This past one was an extreme winter. Our rolling average will help us resource that. But I see the dedication of our staff and the resources we have and what we do with them.
Thank you, CAO Smith. Deputy Mayor?
Just ever so quickly, I completely agree with that sentiment. I think that is spot on. The one thing I think for me that we could do as a town is to lay out the expectations and tell everyone again, look, this is what we're committing to. We're going to do this. And if we do that, October, November, whatever, and then we're consistent in saying what we're going to do and allow people to mark us off of that, I think a lot of that stuff, it's still going to be there, but we would be able to defend it and progress forward. And I just think communication is the one area.
I agree. That's a great suggestion. I will note in the report, not once, I believe, for road conditions, did we have to declare a significant weather event. Many communities start the winter by declaring that, and we only had 2 related to sidewalks. I've worked in communities where we actually close sidewalks in the winter so they don't have to maintain them. We had 2 declaration of significant winter event related to sidewalks, in particular because we needed to use blowers rather than plows. So as pointed out earlier, we do 99.9% of the time meet minimum maintenance standards as decreed by the province. I think technology will help a lot. The technology that Tim and his team are working on will help people see what's happening. And if we work together to change expectations, I think we'll have success.
Thank you very much. I see no other questions from council, so I have a mover and a seconder. Can I just call the vote? All in favor? And that's carried. Next item is 13.1.8, which is the Drinking Water Quality Management Standard. It's Councillor Prendergast who's first. So Councillor Andrews, can I have you remove yourself for a sec? Because she pulled this one. There we go. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. I pulled this report because council is the owner of Orangeville's drinking water system and is liable. And we have an important oversight responsibility. Would staff be able to confirm whether all regulatory requirements and submission deadlines were ultimately met? And what is the timeline for clearing the compliance backlog? And are current staffing levels sufficient to meet both our existing obligations and the new DWQMS version 3.0 requirements?
Mr. Koslek?
Through your worship, I don't know if I can say we had every compliance. I think I'd have to go through. A lot of this is our internal review. So we hire an internal consultant to do an audit on it. I think it scored 93 or 94%. So there were a couple things. I know in one of our inspections, we had to do sampling within 28 days, and I think one time it was done 29 days over the Christmas holidays. So there's a few small ones like that. The drinking water quality management system, it's a big project. It takes a lot of work to drive it. We have 2 of our staff, Tim and Ian, in the audience today. They do a lot of the work on it. It's one of the things we continue to work on. One of the big changes the ministry too is changing their focus a little bit to include stormwater and wastewater. So it's going to be following a similar process to the drinking water quality management system. So that's one area we may look at resources and try and partner it with the water. Also looking at other opportunities to be able to deliver projects. The town also operates the town of Mono drinking water system under contract, so we do their reporting for them also. That's part of it. And I guess from a resource, I think we're reasonable. We will be looking at possibly adding some resources in the future as part of budget considerations, but it'll be a bit of a process to keep it all going, but I think we're doing a good job to date.
Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment versus having a question posed. Upon review of this particular report, I was a little concerned as I started reading because it highlighted the auditor identified 10 opportunities for improvement. Not to say that it's, enormous red flags, but it identified some concerns. What was nice to see later in this report is that, in fact, surveillance audit was completed in accordance with the DWQMS version, and staff are pleased to report that no nonconformances were identified during the audit. So, again, kudos to the staff that take a lot of time to manage our water. Again, I've commented a couple of times on council tonight. We have at times in our community people who, just as we had in our gallery earlier tonight, we had people who are supporting a motion that Councillor Pendergrass has put on the agenda for later. But water gets criticized in our community for a variety of reasons. And, and I've spoken about this, about it is a precious commodity. It's a utility that we can't take for granted. But we do have staff that are well-versed, educated, and are doing their absolute to make sure that we are meeting the compliances that are required. So, again, just echoing this out to the general public, they like to criticize, but they don't necessarily get an opportunity to read the reports, talk to the staff, and find out exactly what our municipality is doing to support this precious commodity.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the recommendation in the report that it be received? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that's carried. The next item up is 13.1.12, which is 4 and 6 3rd Street recommendation report. Deputy Mayor Taylor, you pulled this one.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I am so thrilled that the business in that area is investing in our community, building the parking lot, putting in the unique pizzeria. I think it's going to be wonderful for down there. I just wanted to publicly state, we did have the residents in. They were concerned about parking. I, too, am concerned about parking in that area. It is tight. I'm hoping that as we go through it, we could review what that is going to be. And I hate to say, maybe it's just a draconian can't park here kind of thing, but something is going to need to be looked at before that business open, and we direct people in a certain way. Otherwise, we're going to have issues down there.
Mr. Koslek?
Yeah, through your worship, one of the things we're going to do is keep an eye on the traffic, and I agree, we may look at restricting 3rd Street on both sides to not have parking in that area. That was the main area the residents were concerned about. And it helps with the sight lines and other aspects too. So if the development goes forward, that might be something we bring to council in the new year prior to the business opening to see if we can get approval to restrict that area.
Thank you very much. Was there any other questions or comments on that item? Nope. So the recommendation then is that report INS 2026-55 be received and that council pass a bylaw included in the bylaw section of this meeting agenda to adopt amendment number 138 to the Town of Orangeville official plan to redesignate the subject lands from residential to central business district, and that council pass a bylaw included in the bylaw section of this council meeting agenda to amend zoning bylaw 22-90 as amended to rezone the subject lands from multiple residential medium density to central business district with site-specific special provision 24.245. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens. Any last questions? All in favor? And that is carried. The next item on the agenda is 13.2.2, which is the Credit Valley Conservation draft budget. Deputy Mayor Taylor, you pulled that one.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. On the theme of taxes again and our high taxes, one of the frustrating things that I have as I sit here is we do not have control over certain budgets that come through. I mean this in not a disparaging way, but as example is the police, school board, CVC comes up. CVC does great things. I'm not necessarily a fan, quite honestly, but at the same time, I admit that they do some great things for our community. That being said, the inflation rate in 2024 was 2.9, last year was 2.6. As of June, it's 2.8. These people are coming through and putting 3.5, and they just dictate to us what we have to do again. I just want to be consistent. I bring it up every year. The organization drives me crazy that they go over the rate of inflation, and we're stuck with it. So right away, we're going to be talking about this. Now, it's not a lot of money, but when not a lot of money adds up on not a lot of money and adds up on not a lot of money, it just... Anyway, I just want to make the point. I want to be on record and bring that forward. I don't think there's anything to discuss.
Okay, thank you very much. Was there any other questions or comments on this one? The recommendation is that the draft budget be received. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that's carried. Next up, we have 13.2.9, which is correspondence from the Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. I will turn it over to Councillor Sherwood for this one.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to express my great disappointment in receiving this letter from the Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, Minister McGregor. You'll recall that we put forward a motion to ask the ministry to extend the deadline for the non-listed designated properties to 2027. We asked for a further extension. And his letter, and not just us that put the motion through, there was several municipalities that wrote to the minister. And for him to say that he's not going to reconsider it just shows to me that heritage properties, they're not interested, this government's not interested in protecting our sacred heritage properties. It's all about development. So that's my little knockoff to them because as you can see, I'm very passionate about that. Here in Orangeville, we've been very blessed under the guidance of our manager of planning, Mr. Ward, and an excellent consultant, Stantec, that we have been able to successfully reduce our non-designated registry, which started out at 441 properties. And now with the recent of the Heritage District on York Street and also the proposed ones that are on tonight's agenda, we have been able to successfully designate 49 properties from that 441. But I can tell you the 49 properties is significant, but it's still a far cry. That still leaves us 392, which we cannot get off as of the beginning of the year. So that's just my rant. I was actually going to ask the mayor if she would send a letter of disappointment of that, and I don't know if that's something you would consider, Your Worship, but I'm not pleased about this decision because it's really going to hurt us.
Was actually going to be my comment, Councillor Sherwood. I was going to say that, I think the recommendation should read that we receive the correspondence, but that we also respond. And I'm happy to co-write a letter with you as the chair of Heritage Orangeville and myself. I'd be happy to do that and add that to the recommendation that we also do that.
I thank you very much for you considering that, Your Worship. That would help it. It may not change things because I think the letter was pretty clear cut. I'm not changing my mind, but it is what it is. Thank you.
So if we can change the recommendation to read that it be received and that Councillor Sherwood and I co-write a letter to the minister just to let him know our frustration with this decision and our hope that they will continue to revisit it. Would you like to move that motion, Councillor Sherwood?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Could I get a seconder for it, please? Councillor Stevens? Any last questions or comments on that one? All in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the end of the consent agenda. We'll now move into notices of motion prior to meeting. Councillor Prendergast, I will turn it over to you if you want to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. Our broader region, so southwestern Ontario, is currently evaluating an increase in large-scale data center proposals. While these facilities offer economic and infrastructure benefits, without a doubt, there are significant water requirements for cooling systems, as the technology is presently, present new planning challenges, especially as southwestern municipalities navigate potential water resource shortages. Because we here in Orangeville rely entirely on groundwater for drinking water through 12 wells, cross-boundary developments of this scale have the potential to directly impact our local water security. Fortunately, the County of Dufferin and our 7 neighboring municipalities recognize this and are at various stages of discussions to support this, with the assistance of a very active resident also. This motion formally requests that the county lead a comprehensive review of these developments to ensure our shared resources are protected as we move forward. With that context, I will now read the motion. Regional water resources and infrastructure. Whereas emerging forms of critical infrastructure, including data centers, may have implications for groundwater resources, electricity demand, municipal servicing, land use planning, and regional infrastructure. And whereas data centers may also provide economic investment, employment, assessment growth, energy sector opportunities, enhanced digital infrastructure, data sovereignty, and cybersecurity benefits. And whereas the town of Orangeville relies entirely on groundwater for its municipal drinking water supply, Whereas planning decisions made within neighboring municipalities may have cross-boundary impacts on drinking water resources, infrastructure, and municipal services. And whereas the County of Dufferin has an important role in coordinating regional planning matters that extend beyond municipal boundaries and affect more than one municipality. Therefore, be it resolved that Council direct the CAO to request that the County of Dufferin, in its regional planning role, undertake a comprehensive and balanced review of the potential advantages and disadvantages of new data center development proposals within the County of Dufferin, including economic development, employment, assessment growth, electricity demand and capacity, digital infrastructure, data sovereignty and cybersecurity, groundwater resources, municipal servicing, land use planning, regional infrastructure, and cross-boundary impacts to inform future planning decisions. And be it further resolved that the County of Dufferin be requested to share the findings of the regional review with its local municipalities, which are listed below. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Could I get a seconder for Councillor Prendergast's motion? Councillor Andrews, was there questions or comments on it at all? I have one friendly amendment, if I could make it. In your, right after your therefore it be it resolved, you do note that council should direct the CAO. I would request that you take that piece out and just have council request that the County of Dufferin do this. I think that that's actually a stronger motion, if you're okay with that. If we can just remove that wording, I think that that would make it really solid. Okay, and thank you for bringing this forward, Councillor Prendergast. No further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. Was there any notices of motion for tonight's meeting? Not seeing any. We'll turn it into announcements. Any announcements for members of council? None. Okay, so bylaws. The recommendation then is that all bylaws for the current council meeting listed under item 17 be read 3 times and finally passed. I will remove 17.1, so I will start with 17.2 inclusive all the way down to 17.13. If we can do those as one first. Can I have a mover and a seconder for all of those? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that's carried. And then for 17.1, we're just going to change the wording a little bit, that the bylaw to regulate, control, and govern the erecting, display, alteration, and maintenance of signs as amended to include and may commonly be referred to as blade signs to the definition of projecting sign be read 3 times and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? And that is carried. And I just need a motion to adjourn. Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Stevens. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.